Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something only to have it ripped away from you without warning? That crushing moment when months of your life's work is suddenly not yours anymore. Well, that's exactly what happened to me at Nexus Technologies. After 7 months of late nights, missed weekends, and cancelled vacations, they decided I wasn't the right fit for the project anymore. No explanation, no warning, just a sterile email on a Friday afternoon saying I was being reassigned. But what they didn't know was that I had spent those 7 months building not just their precious project, but also building something else: leverage. And when they took the project from me, I made a decision that would send shockwaves through the entire company. Stay with me, because what happened next changed my entire career, and it might change yours too. Welcome to Dismissal Diaries, the channel where we share real stories of workplace injustice, revenge, and the unexpected consequences that follow. I'm your host, and today's story is one that will make you think twice about how companies treat their most dedicated employees. Before we dive into this roller coaster of corporate betrayal and technical revenge, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Why? Because each week, we bring you authentic stories that the corporate world doesn't want you to hear. Stories that might just save your career one day. Our community is growing, and together, we're exposing the ugly truth behind those polished company value statements. Today's story is especially jaw-dropping, so settle in. You won't want to miss a single detail of what happens when a company pushes a skilled developer past their breaking point. It all started 2 years ago. I had been working at Nexus Technologies for about 3 years by then. Nexus was one of those mid-sized tech companies that was desperately trying to act like a startup, while actually being completely corporate in its structure. You know the type: ping-pong tables and beer fridges that nobody had time to use, motivational posters about innovation hanging on the walls. But God forbid you questioned any decision from upper management. I was a senior developer, and I had earned my stripes the hard way. 60-hour weeks were my norm, not because the company demanded it explicitly, but because that was the unspoken expectation. If you weren't killing yourself for the job, you weren't passionate enough. Then came Project Phoenix. That's what our CEO, Marcus, called it in the company-wide email, announcing this revolutionary new software that would disrupt the industry and take Nexus to the next level. Phoenix was supposed to be an AI-driven analytics platform that could predict customer behavior with unprecedented accuracy. Marcus had apparently promised major clients that we could deliver this platform within a year, even though nothing like it existed in our product lineup before. When I was called into my manager David's office and told I would be the lead developer on Phoenix, I felt two things simultaneously: pride and dread. Pride, because being chosen meant my hard work had been recognized. Dread, because I knew exactly what this would mean for my life for the foreseeable future. "We're counting on you for this one," David said, leaning back in his chair with that corporate smile that never quite reached his eyes. Marcus is personally invested in Phoenix. It's got a lot of eyes on it. What David didn't say, but what I understood perfectly, was that if Phoenix failed, my career at Nexus would effectively be over. But if it succeeded, the credit would go to the visionary leadership of Marcus and the executive team. This is how the game was played. I assembled a small team, just 3 other developers: Aiden, Maya, and Raphael. We were given a dedicated project room, which was really just a windowless conference room with some desks crammed in. Marcus had demanded complete secrecy around Phoenix, treating it like we were developing nuclear codes instead of a customer analytics platform. From day one, the timeline was impossible. We had 8 months to build something that realistically needed at least 18. But when I brought this up to David, he just gave me that same empty smile. "We have complete faith in you and your team," he said. "And remember, Marcus is watching this one closely." So we began what would become the most intense work experience of my life. 12-hour days stretched into 14, then 16. Weekends disappeared. I cancelled a vacation I'd been planning for a year. My partner at the time started leaving post-it notes on the refrigerator, just to communicate with me, since we were barely seeing each other awake. But despite the punishing schedule, something amazing was happening. Phoenix was taking shape, and it was good. Better than good, it was brilliant. We had found an innovative approach to the AI architecture that made the predictive algorithms twice as accurate as anything on the market. I was solving problems in my sleep, literally waking up at 3 a.m. with solutions that I'd rush to my laptop to code before they slipped away. The four of us became a kind of family in that windowless room. Maya's code was elegant and efficient. Raphael could troubleshoot anything. Aiden had an intuitive understanding of user experience that made the complex system actually usable. And I held it all together, guiding the architecture and making sure all the pieces fit perfectly. 4 months in, we had our first major milestone review with the executive team. We'd been working on a prototype that, while limited in features, demonstrated the core technology. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. We had been up until 5 a.m. that morning getting everything ready, went home for a quick shower and change of clothes, and were back by 9 to prepare. The demo went flawlessly. The room fell silent as they watched our prototype predict customer actions with 87% accuracy on test data. Even Marcus, who usually spent these meetings half distracted on his phone, was fully engaged, leaning forward with an intensity I'd never seen before. "This," Marcus said slowly after the presentation ended, "this is exactly what I envisioned." He turned to the other executives. "Didn't I tell you? Didn't I say this would change everything?" The room erupted in applause. David clapped me on the shoulder. "Outstanding work," he said. "Truly outstanding." For that brief moment, all the sacrifices seemed worth it. We were building something revolutionary, and it was being recognized. That night, for the first time in months, the four of us left work at a reasonable hour and went out for drinks to celebrate. What I didn't know then was that the success of that demo had set something else in motion, something that would eventually lead to disaster. 2 weeks after the demo, a new face appeared in our project room. Christine, introduced as a project coordinator from the product management team. David explained that given Phoenix's importance, upper management wanted someone to help streamline communication between our team and the executive level. I had my doubts from the start. Christine had no technical background, but asked for access to all our documentation, code repositories, and design specifications. She began scheduling daily sync meetings that cut into our actual development time. And she was constantly on the phone with someone, stepping just outside the room but still visible through the glass walls, gesturing animatedly. "I don't trust her," Maya said to me one evening after Christine had left. "Have you noticed she's always asking about the core prediction algorithms? Not the implementation details, but specifically how we designed the architecture." Nah, I had noticed, and it bothered me too, but we were too busy to focus on office politics. We were now 5 months in, with 3 months left until the promised delivery date, and still had mountains of work to do. Then came the first red flag that I should have paid more attention to. I was called to a meeting with David and Christine. No one else from my team was invited. When I arrived, Marcus was there too, along with someone I didn't recognize. A sharp-dressed man introduced as James from Strategic Partnerships. "We've been talking about the go-to-market strategy for Phoenix," Marcus said, not bothering with small talk. "James has some specific requirements from potential clients that we need to incorporate." For the next hour, James outlined changes that would require us to rework at least 40% of what we'd already built. When I explained this would make the current timeline impossible, Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "The deadline isn't changing," he said. "Figure it out." As I left that meeting, Christine pulled me aside. "Don't worry," she said, with a smile that felt rehearsed. "I'll help prioritize the features so we can make this work." Over the next few weeks, more and more of these meetings occurred, each one adding requirements or changing direction. And each time, I was told not to involve the rest of my team in these discussions, to protect them from distractions, according to David. 6 months in, I was starting to see the pattern, but I was too exhausted to process what it meant. Christine was now practically running the project, despite having no understanding of the technical challenges. She had direct access to Marcus, bypassing David entirely sometimes, and the most troubling part was that she was taking credit for our architectural innovations in executive reports. I discovered this by accident when an email chain was forwarded to me that shouldn't have been. Still, we persevered. We worked even longer hours, somehow finding ways to incorporate the new requirements without completely starting over. The code base was becoming my life's work, with my fingerprints on every critical system. I had even created a separate development environment on a private server, one that only our team had access to, where we could work without interference from the increasingly chaotic main development pipeline that Christine insisted on managing. 7 months into the project, with just 1 month to go before the promised delivery date, I came into work on a Monday morning to find Maya, Raphael, and Aiden standing in the hallway outside our project room. Their access badges weren't working. Inside the room, there were 5 people I'd never seen before, all working at our desks. Our personal items had been boxed up and left in the hallway. I called David immediately, but got his voicemail. I texted, emailed. Nothing. Finally, at 10:30 a.m., I received a calendar invitation for a meeting at 11 with David and HR. The meeting lasted exactly 7 minutes. David, sitting next to a stone-faced HR representative, informed me that the Phoenix project was being restructured. My team and I were being reassigned to different departments. Effective immediately, we were no longer working on Phoenix. "But we're a month from delivery," I said, stunned. "We've built this from nothing. Nobody knows the system like we do." "The new team has been thoroughly briefed," David said, not meeting my eyes. "Christine has documented everything extensively." "Is this because of the timeline? We can still hit the deadline if—" "The decision has been made at the highest level," the HR rep interrupted. "This isn't a negotiation. You'll receive your new assignment by the end of the day." I was in shock. 7 months of my life, countless personal sacrifices, all swept aside without explanation. As I left the meeting, I saw Christine walking with the new team members, showing them around the office like she'd been there for years. That afternoon, my new assignment came through. I was being moved to maintenance on Nexus's oldest product line, effectively a demotion. Maya, Raphael, and Aiden had been similarly sidelined, all sent to different departments so we couldn't easily communicate. That night was the lowest point of my professional career. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the remnants of a personal life I'd neglected for Phoenix, and tried to make sense of what had happened. It gradually dawned on me. We had been used. Christine hadn't been brought in to help the project. She'd been brought in to extract our knowledge, document it, and prepare for our replacement. The question was why? The answer came 2 days later, when Maya called me after work. "Have you seen the company announcement?" she asked, her voice tight with anger. I hadn't. I opened my email to find a company-wide message from Marcus, announcing a strategic partnership with Tech Dynamics, a larger competitor. As part of this partnership, Phoenix would now be a joint venture, with Tech Dynamics providing a specialized development team to bring the product to market. It was a corporate acquisition in disguise. Marcus was selling Phoenix, and probably planning to sell all of Nexus eventually, to Tech Dynamics. We had been removed because we were too invested in the project, too likely to object or cause problems during the transition. James from Strategic Partnerships, the man from that meeting months ago, was actually James Reeves, the CTO of Tech Dynamics. They had been planning this all along. I felt a cold rage building inside me, not just at being removed from the project, but at the deception, the waste of our time and talent, the casual disregard for what we had built. This wasn't business. This was theft. That's when I remembered the private development server, the one only our team knew about. In the chaos of our removal, no one had asked about it. It contained our most recent code base, including the innovative prediction algorithms that were the heart of Phoenix. Algorithms I had designed that Christine had taken credit for in her reports. I still had access to this server. In my role as lead developer, I had set up the access controls myself. And in the rush to replace us, they hadn't thought to check for external development environments. I sent a group text to Maya, Raphael, and Aiden. "Drinks tonight? We need to talk." We met at a quiet bar far from the office. For the first hour, we just vented our frustrations, sharing the different ways we'd been sidelined. Raphael had been moved to customer support. Aiden was now testing legacy software. Maya, perhaps the most talented coder among us, had been assigned to documentation. Then I told them about the private server and what I was considering. "They can't just take our work like this," I said. 7 months of our lives. "The algorithms we developed, those are ours. They belong to us. Technically, they belong to Nexus," Aiden pointed out. We signed contracts. Contracts that also promised us project completion bonuses, recognition for our work, and career advancement, Maya countered. "They've already broken their side of the agreement." We debated the ethics and legalities for hours. None of us wanted to do anything that would harm our future careers or get us into legal trouble, but the injustice of the situation was unbearable. Finally, we came to a decision. We wouldn't destroy anything. That would be crossing a line none of us were willing to cross. But we would protect our work from being stolen and misrepresented. That night, I logged into the private server and began the process. First, I documented everything, every breakthrough, every major design decision, every elegant solution we'd created, with timestamps and code comments showing our authorship. I compiled this into a detailed technical document that proved without question that the 4 of us were the true architects of Phoenix. Then, I implemented what we had agreed to call Project Reclamation. I wrote a script that would systematically copy all of our code, documentation, and design assets to an encrypted backup, and then wipe the server clean, leaving only a simple text file named readme.txt. The contents of that file were straightforward. To whom it may concern, the Phoenix project was conceived and built by 4 dedicated Nexus employees who were removed from the project without explanation or recognition. What you're looking for isn't here anymore. It isn't destroyed. It's simply been reclaimed by its creators. If Nexus and Tech Dynamics wish to discuss a fair arrangement that acknowledges our contribution and compensates us appropriately for our intellectual property, we are open to conversation. Until then, best of luck recreating 7 months of innovative work in your remaining 4-week timeline. Sincerely, the real Phoenix team. I hesitated before executing the script. This was a point of no return. But then I remembered Christine taking credit for our work. Marcus's dismissive wave when I explained the impossibility of the timeline, and David's refusal to look me in the eye as he delivered the news of our removal. I executed the script. The next morning, I arrived at work as usual and went to my new, diminished role. By 10 a.m., the building was in chaos. IT security personnel were running through the halls. Emergency meetings were being called. By noon, all non-essential personnel were sent home while they dealt with the technical issue. I calmly packed my bag and left, knowing exactly what had happened. They had finally discovered that the private server, the one Christine hadn't known to document in her extensive reports, was the actual source of the most recent and functional version of Phoenix. And now it was empty. By 3 p.m., I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was James Reeves, the CTO of Tech Dynamics himself. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tense. "Immediately." "I'm free tomorrow morning," I replied calmly, "and I'll need my team present for any discussion." There was a long pause. "Fine. 9 a.m., Tech Dynamics headquarters. We'll send a car." The next morning, the four of us were escorted into a conference room where Marcus, James, and a group of lawyers waited. The atmosphere was glacial. "What you've done is theft," Marcus began, his face flushed with anger. "Corporate espionage. We'll press charges." James held up a hand, silencing him. "What my colleague means to say is that we find ourselves in a difficult situation. One that we believe can be resolved to everyone's satisfaction." What followed was 5 hours of tense negotiation. They needed Phoenix. Marcus had already announced it to clients, and Tech Dynamics had invested significantly in the acquisition deal. We had leverage, and we used it. By the end of the day, we had secured what we wanted: full credit as the architects and creators of Phoenix, substantial financial compensation in the form of both back pay for our overtime and future royalties from the product, and new employment contracts with Tech Dynamics that respected our expertise and contributions. Christine was quietly let go. David was reassigned, and Marcus found himself having to explain to his board why an acquisition he had promised would be smooth had turned into a PR nightmare when the true story leaked to several tech blogs. That was 2 years ago now. Phoenix launched 6 months later than originally planned, but it launched with our names prominently featured in the credits. It's now Tech Dynamics' most successful product, and the royalty checks we receive each quarter are a constant reminder that standing up for yourself can sometimes be the right choice, even when it feels terrifying in the moment. I don't advocate for what I did. Removing company property from a server was a risk that could have backfired badly. But I do advocate for knowing your worth and refusing to let others take credit for your hard work and dedication. If you've ever been in a similar situation, or worry you might be someday, subscribe to Dismissal Diaries now. Our community shares these stories not to encourage revenge, but to help you recognize the warning signs of a toxic workplace before you're 7 months into an impossible project with nothing to show for it. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and join thousands of others who are learning to navigate the complex politics of modern workplaces. And if you have your own story to share, leave a comment below. I read every single one. Until next time, remember, your skills, your time, and your dignity are always worth fighting for.